The unique ID region applies a unique number to a form and increments by 1 every time the form is accessed. This can be helpful to identify each submitted form as unique. For example, the unique ID may be an invoice number or serial number. The unique ID region type is available in Forms Designer 6.5 and higher, and is available to all license tiers. Before you can use a unique ID region in your form, you must create a unique ID counter in the Field to Base portal. The unique ID region will be using this counter to populate the next unique ID on your form. To create a unique ID, navigate to the Admin tab and select Unique ID. If you do not see Unique ID listed in the Admin menu, please contact Field to Base support. Next, click Create. This will open the Create Unique ID window, which provides you with several options for configuring your unique ID. In the Name field, set the name of the counter. You will need to use this name when you create your unique ID region in Forms Designer. This field is required. In the Start Value field, enter the first number you want to use in your form. The default start number is 1, but you can change it as needed. The End Value field is optional and defines the maximum number for the counter. Once the maximum value is reached, the form will create an error and cannot be sent until the counter is restarted. Only use this option if you know you will have a limited amount of forms. Anything you enter in the Prefix field will be prepended to each unique ID. For example, you could add a department prefix to your unique IDs. This field is optional. The pad size determines the length of your serial number. The prefix is not counted in the pad size. You do need to specify a pad character for your pad size in order for it to work. This field is optional. The pad character is the character used to fill spaces of your pad size. This field is optional, although it is required if you entered a pad size. For example, if the start value is 1, prefix is F2B-PS, pad size is 4, and pad character is 0, then the first unique ID displayed in a form will be F2B-PS0001, followed by F2B-PS0002. When you are finished configuring your unique ID, click Submit. Once the unique ID counter has been created in the portal, you are ready to create a unique ID region in your form. First, create a new region and choose Unique ID as your region type. Go to the Unique ID tab to select the options for your Unique ID region. The Unique ID Trigger section allows you to set when the unique ID will be populated in the form. You will need an active connection to get the next unique ID from your account. If you do not have service when you open the form, an exclamation point will appear to let you know that a unique ID could not be reached. You can use the Try Again option when you have an active connection. The default is to populate the region when your form is initially opened. To populate the unique ID when the form is sent, choose when the form draft is sent. However, if you do choose this option, you should not also require the region, since requirement validation is checked before the form is sent. If the unique ID is selected to populate on form sending and the region is required, the form will never be allowed to send. To populate the unique ID the first time another region value is changed, choose the first time a region changes, then choose the desired region from the Trigger Region dropdown. For example, if you only want to get a unique ID to be generated when a form is signed, you could set that signature region as the Trigger Region. To populate the unique ID every time a region is changed, choose Every Time a Region Changes. Then choose the desired region from the Trigger Region dropdown. The Trigger Region will become enabled once a unique ID trigger that uses a trigger region has been selected. The Unique ID Source section is used to define the source for your unique ID. The default option is to use a static counter name. When this option is selected, enter the name of the unique ID counter that you want to use in the field below. In this case, we will enter the name of the unique ID we just created in the portal. If you select Choose the Counter dynamically using a region value, the arrow button will be enabled, and you can click on it to access the window of available regions to use as a source. This will allow for the preferred unique ID counter name to be used as the source when the user enters the unique ID counter name in the selected region. For example, if you have a different unique ID counter for several different departments, and you want to populate the unique ID based on a user's department selection. By default, unique ID regions cannot be edited by the user. Check the checkbox for Allow users to enter a new value if you want to give users the ability to edit or insert a value into a unique ID region. This option would typically be used when there is no internet access for calling web services, so that the user can manually enter a unique ID. For more information on using Forms Designer, visit the Forms Designer section of our Help Center at help.fieldtobase.com.